Hi and welcome back to Learn Python by Doing number 11. So in this video we're going to talk about Python closures. And well, closures are not restricted only to Python. They are also available in programming languages like JavaScript, and the concept is the same. So this is a very useful and important concept that will be very important for the next video, so pay attention. Okay, so closures are one of those concepts that are better explained with examples than with theory, but we're still going to see some theory. So let's start with three things that we need in order to have a closure. First, we must have a nested function. That means a function inside another function. The nested function must refer to a value defined in the enclosing function, and the enclosing function must return the nested function. Okay, so let's first start with a simple example. We're going to define a function called print message, and it's going to receive as an argument message, and inside this function we're going to define another function called printer. This is not going to receive any argument, and it's going to print message. And finally, we call the printer function. So from now on, we're going to call this the inner function and this the outside function. So let's call this function here the function print message, and let's pass this string hello, and the answer is hello. So this function printed hello. So what happened here? So there are some things that happen here that are interesting. The inner function has access to this argument of the outside function, okay? And one thing that you have to take into consideration is that this variable here is read-only. That means that you cannot modify it. Let's see what happens if we try to modify it. So we're going to append the hello world here and see what happens. It raised an error, unbound local error, local variable message referenced before assignment. So in order to modify this message variable, we have to specify that it's a non-local variable, and we use the non-local keyword to achieve this. So we say non-local message, and now you could modify this message variable. Okay, but this is just something you have to take into consideration, but we're not going to modify the message variable, so we're going to delete that part of the code. Okay, so now let's do something slightly different. So let's return now the printer inner function. Okay, so let's so I don't know how to call this another function. I don't know. And let's see what happens if we call this another function. So it takes no arguments, because remember this another function is the printer function, which takes no arguments. So we can call it with no arguments. Okay, so this variable is a function and it returned hello. Okay, so this is interesting because this function here finished its execution but still remembers this variable message. So what happened here? Well, we had a closure, and that's why after returning this function printer, it still remembers this argument message. In fact, let's see what happens if we delete the print message function. So now we don't have that function anymore. In fact, let's see what happens if we try to do this again. So name error, print message is not defined. Why? Because we use this del operator, which means delete, And now this outside function doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so what do you think will happen if we do this, another function? So it's still there. It's still there. Um, Besides, we deleted the outside function. So that's what a closure is. So here we did comply with these 3 points. We had a nested function, the printer function. The nested function must refer to a value defined in the enclosing function. So this message, a variable, and the enclosing function returned our inner function, which was printer. So this is a closure. Okay, so when to use closures? Well, closures can avoid the use of global values and provide some form of data hiding. It can also provide an object-oriented solution to the problem. So, for example, let's define a class, which is going to be very, very simple. So, for example, it's going to be multiplier. It's going to have this init magic method. We're going to pass this n, and we're going to say self n is going to be this n, and then we're going to multiply this function multiply, and it's going to receive this x, and it's going to return x times self.n. So let's see what happens with this class. So we're going to have an object and the multiplier. So we pass this n, so every element, so every argument that we pass to this multiply is going to be multiplied by 5. So for example, 7 is going to return 7 times 5, that is 35. Okay, but we had to implement a constructor, to implement this function, and to implement a class. It's better and easier to do this with a function, with a closure. So we simply say, okay, so pass me that variable you want to multiply those values, which is going to be our n. And here we're going to define again our multiply. It's going to, you can pass the x, and it's going to return x times n, and this is going to return the multiply. Okay, so this is exactly the same thing, but with less lines of code and without the need to create a class. So I don't know, multiplier, maybe this by 5, I don't know, by 5. So this is going to be multiplier 5. And now we can multiplier by 5, call it, I don't know, with the argument 7 again, and it's the same, 35. So this is equivalent to this. But if you have more methods in your class, then this is not a good solution. This is just when you have like one method in your class, then you can use a closure to avoid creating a class and all the things like creating a constructor and all the things associated to creating a class. Okay, they are also extremely useful for implementing decorators. So that's what we're going to use in the next videos, and that's why I presented you this video here. Okay, so that's all we're going to learn in this video. I hope you liked it, and see you in the next one.